in here. Your unauthorized stand is in violation of Section 3B. You need to remove it immediately.
I own this property outright.
The cold hit my ears before the paper did. I stepped out into the gray morning, smelled wet asphalt and fresh coffee, and there it was, stuck to my little sidewalk stand like gum, bright orange, bold letters, violation. A second one fluttered under the leg, damp from last night's sprinklers. By 7:10 a.m., the HOA golf cart rolled past, and Karen with the bob and the clipboard pointed like she was saluting a flag. That stand is not compliant. I stared at the steam coming off my thermos and felt my jaw lock. It wasn't even big. A folding table, a chalk sign, 2 jars of homemade jam, 5 muffins. The tickets stacked up that week while the air stayed sharp and the smell of tar from a patch crew stuck to everything. 6 tickets in 4 days. My hands shook from caffeine and anger, not the cold. This fight had a name. HOA ticketed my sidewalk stand 6 times, then I pulled the deed. It started May 3, 2024, when the first notice said I owed $50 for obstructing community common space. I read it twice, mouth dry, eyes burning. My sidewalk? I sat up there because the sun hits soft in the morning, and my kid can sell lemonade without frying. Karen rolled by again at 9:00 p.m. that night, tapping her watch like I was a runaway. She said, "Pack it up or I'll call it in." I tried to laugh it off, tried to be the good neighbor. But when I found ticket number 6 slapped on the chalkboard, the chalk smear looked like a slap across my name. The thesis was simple: they hit me in the moment where my life lives, in front of my house, with rules that felt made up. I tried to talk. I brought muffins to the next board hour and said, "Hey, can we be reasonable?" Karen crossed her legs and read from a page that sounded like a weather alert. Obstruction. Liability. Committee discretion. I said, "It's the city sidewalk." She said, "It's governed by our covenants." A neighbor leaned in close and whispered, "I'm sorry, we can't talk, we got warned last year for lawnstones." Emails went unanswered. Calls went to a voicemail that promised a response in 3 to 5 business days. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. I even printed a picture of my stand with a tape measure across it, 36 inches, nowhere near blocking anything. When I set the binder on the HOA desk, the receptionist slid it back with 2 fingers like it smelled bad. The board ignored my appeal. The fines climbed to $250. The message was clear: comply or pay. So I drew a line in the sand and kept my feet on the sidewalk. I said it out loud in my kitchen at 6:22 a.m., hands around a hot mug, "I will use proper channels only. No yelling. No pettiness. We'll do this the right way." I drove to the county clerk. I filed a public records request and waited under buzzing lights, reading old pamphlets that smelled like a basement. When the folder came, the file landed with 63 pages. Plat maps. Easement diagrams. The deed to my parcel. The city right-of-way map was bright and simple. The strip of concrete in front of my house stood outside HOA control. The covenants even had a clause I hadn't seen, buried after a page of fence heights. It said HOA authority stops at the property line. I built my timeline on a legal pad and labeled it like a teacher. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. Timeline item 2 May 3 at 8:11 a.m. first ticket. Timeline item 3 May 6 at 7:10 a.m. sixth ticket. I got a permit from the city for a sidewalk vendor demonstration, $10, approved in 1 hour. I called the city inspector and said, "Can you just look?" He said, "If it's right of way, it's our turf." Here's where it flipped. I kept the stand folded for a week, saying nothing. Then I posted a flyer for a community bake sale, Saturday at 10:00 a.m., all proceeds to the middle school band. I invited everyone, even Karen. I set up on the dot, bright chalk sign, muffins, water, a string of little flags. The city inspector parked in plain sight. The permit sat in a clear sleeve on the table. Karen arrived on the golf cart like a parade marshal. She strode up, lifted her clipboard, and announced, "This is a violation and subject to immediate fines." I nodded and said, "Great, let's review." I pulled the deed. I laid down the right-of-way map. The inspector leaned in and pointed to the fat gray line that marked city control. He said, "This area is not under HOA authority. The law is simple: a homeowners association can't enforce on public right-of-way." Karen's pen froze in midair. The crowd pressed closer. Someone said, "Wait, what?" I turned the binder and showed my labeled timeline, my receipts, my emails. My hands didn't shake. Phones came out fast. Neighbors filmed. Kids giggled. The teen from Lot 14 did a quiet narrator voice into his camera like a nature show. The comments popped up later on our neighborhood app, but even in that moment, I could hear whispers turning into laughter. A guy across the street called out, "Looks like someone studied." The inspector asked Karen for her written policy. She lifted a sheet and it had an old watermark from 2012. I said, "I counted 11 complaint emails about my stand, all sent by one person, between 7:00 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. on 3 days. The mom next to me laughed into her sleeve. The sun was warm, the muffins were warm, and the air felt light for the first time in weeks. When Karen tried to hand me a ticket anyway, the inspector said, "Please do not issue unlawful notices." The crowd actually clapped. It was ridiculous, and it was perfect. Then the real flip came. An officer rolled up because someone had called in a trespass. The inspector waved him over, showed the map, the deed, the permit. The officer turned to Karen and asked, "Who made the report?" She said, "We received it anonymously." He looked at my timeline and the words I'd written felt heavy and true. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. The HOA board, suddenly less brave, shuffled papers and whispered. The officer took statements. The inspector issued a written guidance that the HOA could not ticket or threaten enforcement on the sidewalk or right-of-way. The board set an emergency meeting for Tuesday at 6:00 p.m. They read the covenants out loud for the first time in years. They voted 5-0 to void all 6 tickets, refund the $250, remove the sidewalk clause from their template letters, and censure Karen for misuse of authority. The police gave her a warning about further calls. It got quieter after that. Kids drew chalk stars again. My stand came back on Saturdays. Karen resigned 2 weeks later, citing health and stress. The new board sent a letter that actually sounded human. They said they'd start office hours on Wednesdays and work with the city instead of against it. The HOA lawyer did a training on jurisdiction. We set up a summer block party with the band kids playing 3 songs and a dad grilling under a shade tent. On the first hot day of June, the old man from Lot 3 shuffled over and dropped $2 in the jar. He said, "Good job, kid." I handed him a cold lemonade and he smiled with the kind of smile that makes time slow down. Peace felt like a closed door that finally stopped rattling. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.